You go, wait a second, doesn't anybody ask the question, you're older now, I mean, why wouldn't you want to go and have 72 virgins waiting on you and all that? Nobody asks that question, but that's why they pick young men. They haven't quite gotten to that point.
Clint Eastwood has finally said the one thing he spent decades refusing to talk about. For more than 50 years, Clint Eastwood has lived a life defined by fame, relationships, and a public image built on strength and control. But behind that image, there has always been one part of his past that never fully disappeared. What is it that still follows him after all these years? And why is he speaking about it now, when he has nothing left to prove? Join us as we uncover what Clint Eastwood has finally revealed at 95. The First Believer. Long before the world knew him as Dirty Harry or the Man with No Name, Clint Eastwood was simply a 23-year-old struggling actor trying to survive in Hollywood. In May of 1953, Clint met Margaret Neville Johnson on a blind date. She was a model and manufacturing secretary, working for an auto parts supplier at the time. The connection between them was immediate, and within just 6 months of that first meeting, they were married in Pasadena, California. Maggie was not drawn to a movie star. After all, there was no star yet. She fell in love with the man himself, the non-famous Clint, who had not yet captured the world's attention. 5 years would pass before Clint received his breakthrough role on the CBS television series Rawhide. During those early years, Maggie stood beside him through the uncertainty of small acting jobs, auditions that led nowhere, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. But even during their courtship, complications arose. Clint had an affair with a woman in Seattle, who became pregnant and gave up their child for adoption. That child, Lori Murray, was born in 1954, the same year Clint and Maggie were beginning their married life together. The identity of Lori's biological mother has never been publicly confirmed, though biographer Patrick McGilligan has stated that she belonged to a theater group Clint participated in. But it was just as Clint got on the set of Rawhide in 1959 that his marriage to Maggie hit real rocky ground. He met Roxanne Tunis, a dancer and stuntwoman on the show, and they would begin a long-lasting affair that would last the next 14 years. Just 5 years after they met, Roxanne gave birth to Clint's second child, Kimber. And that same year, 1964, Maggie and Clint separated. But their story did not end there. They briefly rekindled their romance, and during this reconciliation, they welcomed 2 children together. Son Kyle Eastwood, born in May 1968, and daughter Allison Eastwood, born in 1972. Despite these moments of reunion, the marriage continued to drift. Clint's affairs, including his ongoing relationship with Roxanne and later his intense connection with Sondra Locke, created a distance that could not be bridged. Having had enough, the couple separated for good in 1979 and finalized their divorce 5 years later, a divorce that reportedly cost Clint $25 million. But despite the pain and complexity of their decades-long relationship, the pair remained friends through the years. But if Maggie was the first believer, was she truly the one who left the deepest mark on Clint's heart? Hollywood's most intense love. By the mid-1970s, Clint Eastwood was already one of the most recognizable faces in cinema. But it was during this period that a woman entered his life who would become, for many observers, the most significant romantic partnership of his entire career. Her name was Sondra Locke. Sondra was no newcomer to Hollywood when she met Clint. 8 years earlier, in 1968, she had made her film debut in the drama The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, starring alongside Alan Arkin. Her performance earned her both Golden Globe and Academy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actress. She was a respected talent with a promising future. But everything changed when she was cast alongside Clint in the 1976 Western The Outlaw Josie Wales, which Clint also directed. She played Laura Lee, the character who joins Josie on his quest for vengeance. The connection between them was immediate and profound. In her 1997 autobiography, Sandra described the moment their eyes met, writing about how she was unprepared for the way their eyes seemed to instantly fuse together. They began dating on the set, even though Clint was still married to Maggie Johnson at the time, and Sandra herself had been in a marriage of convenience since 1967 to Gordon Lee Anderson, an unemployed gay man. But the intensity of their connection overshadowed everything else, and when filming finished, Clint invited Sandra to move to Carmel, California, where he lived with his family, so that they could be together. For nearly 14 years, Clint and Sandra shared a relationship that blended both personal life and professional creativity. Over that time, they made 6 films together, including The Gauntlet in 1977, the redneck comedies Every Which Way But Loose in 1978, and Any Which Way You Can in 1980, Bronco Billy in 1980, and finally, the Dirty Harry sequel Sudden Impact in 1983. Their collaborations were commercially successful, and they were often viewed as one of Hollywood's most powerful creative pairs. The perks of their life together were extraordinary. They had access to top studio executives, homes in Bel Air, Carmel, Shasta County, and Sun Valley, Idaho. The Warner Brothers corporate jet shuttled them from house to house, to shooting locations, and even on shopping expeditions for handmade tiles in Mexico. To many observers, their partnership seemed inseparable. Sandra once explained that if you were in Clint Eastwood movies, you were in the Clint Eastwood movie business. People stopped calling her for other roles, automatically assuming she was working exclusively with Clint. But beneath the surface, tensions were building. Sandra wanted to branch out and build a career beyond Clint's films, including directing her own movies. She ultimately made 2 films during that period: Rat Boy in 1986 and Impulse in 1990. She later told The Washington Post that she understood it would be at the risk of their relationship. And when she did, that was the beginning of the end. By 1989, the relationship was crumbling. Clint had once again secretly fathered 2 children with another woman, Jocelyn Reeves, during the last 3 years of his relationship with Sandra. Sandra also claimed that Clint had persuaded her to have 2 abortions over the course of their relationship because he did not want more children, and that she had undergone a tubal ligation under false pretenses. The end came swiftly and brutally. While Sandra was on the set of Impulse, Clint changed the locks on their Bel Air home, boxed up her clothes, and dumped her belongings on the lawn. Sandra filed a palimony lawsuit against Clint on April 26, 1989. She alleged that she had suffered humiliation, mental anguish, and severe emotional and physical distress during their relationship. The case was heard behind closed doors by a private judge. Sandra later filed a second lawsuit, alleging that Clint had duped her into dropping the first case by dangling a bogus 3-year development deal with Warner Brothers. Though she was paid $1.5 million, she never optioned a single film. The cases were eventually settled, but the wounds remained. In the years that followed, the story of Sandra Locke became the love Clint never truly forgot. Not because it lasted, but because of how deeply it shaped the years they shared. With the intensity of Sandra Locke behind him, Clint Eastwood seemed to have lost the love of his life. Or so the world believed. But behind the scenes, another woman was quietly raising his children in total secrecy. Who was she? And why did Clint keep her hidden for so long? A quiet life, far from the spotlight. While Clint's relationship with Sandra Locke dominated Hollywood headlines throughout the 1980s, another woman was quietly living a very different kind of life with him. Her name was Jocelyn Reeves, and her story with Clint stands as one of the most private chapters in his long and complicated romantic history. Unlike the actresses and models who populated Clint's world, Jocelyn was a flight attendant, working for American Airlines at the time. She was simply a woman who crossed paths with one of the most famous men in the world in the mid-1980s. Some reports place their first meeting at the Hog's Breath Inn, a Carmel establishment Clint frequented. At the time, Clint was still living with Sandra, and his marriage to Maggie Johnson had not yet been officially dissolved. Despite the secrecy, their relationship produced 2 children. Scott Clinton Reeves, now known professionally as Scott Eastwood, was born on March 21, 1986, in Carmel, California. 2 years later, in 1986, a daughter, Catherine, was born. Both children legally carried their mother's last name. For years, the existence of Scott and Catherine was kept hidden from the world. Sandra herself did not learn of Clint's secret family until the relationship was already falling apart. Scott spent most of his childhood living in Hawaii with his mother. His father, meanwhile, was often absent, focused on his career. Despite the physical distance, Scott would eventually follow in his father's footsteps, becoming an actor and appearing in several of Clint's films. But would the next woman to enter his life finally bring him the peace and stability he had been searching for all along? The calm after the storm. By the mid-1990s, Clint Eastwood had lived several lifetimes in Hollywood. He had been the rugged gunslinger of westerns, the relentless detective of the Dirty Harry films, and one of the most respected directors in the industry. His personal life had been a tangled web of marriages, affairs, and complicated relationships. But in 1993, a chance encounter would lead to what seemed, for a time, like the stability he had been searching for. The two met when Dina, then a 27-year-old television journalist, interviewed Clint, who was 62 at the time. She was working as an anchorwoman at a TV station in Salinas, California. Unlike many people who had crossed paths with the actor over the years, Dina was not a Hollywood insider. She later said that she was not a huge fan, so she did not have to deal with that hurdle. She approached him not as a legend, but simply as a person. Her boss, however, had a different prediction, telling her she was going to marry Clint Eastwood. As it turned out, he was right. Clint surprised Dina with a private ceremony at his home in the Shadow Creek Golf Course in Las Vegas on March 31, 1996. He was 65, she was 30. Clint later told Hello magazine that he had finally found someone who allowed him to feel totally at ease, describing the simple pleasure of sitting on his sofa, having a drink, and looking around to see his wife and daughter, knowing that was as good as life could be. He added that he had waited a long time to experience that. Their daughter, Morgan Eastwood, was born on December 12, 1996, just 8 months after the wedding. For many observers, this relationship seemed different from Clint's previous romances. Dina brought a sense of calm and normalcy that felt refreshing in the often chaotic world of celebrity. In a 2006 interview with Carmel magazine, Dina spoke about her life with Clint, describing being married to him as almost a full-time job, just trying to keep up with him. She also emphasized her role as a very present mother. She described Clint as the least pretentious person she had ever met, and she loved that he was so conscientious about nature and letting things remain as they are. Clint joined in the interview and said that he loved Dina's big doe eyes, describing her as a very forthright kind of person. He attributed their connection to pheromones, or something unexplainable, and noted that they had been together for 11 years. For nearly 2 decades, the marriage appeared stable. Clint continued directing and starring in films, including the acclaimed Unforgiven, which had already solidified his reputation as one of Hollywood's greatest filmmakers. But even the calmest chapters can slowly change. In April of 2013, Dina entered rehab for depression and anxiety. By August of that year, she filed for legal separation, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in December 2014, after a year-long legal battle. The couple had been married for 18 years. Despite the pain of the divorce, Dina had given Clint something many relationships had not: nearly 2 decades of quiet stability. But even that calm eventually faded, demonstrating that no single chapter of his life was permanent. And this creative connection would leave a mark that no marriage ever could. But who was she? And what made their bond so different? Connection through art. In the early 1990s, as Clint was reaching a remarkable creative peak in his career, another woman entered his life, one whose connection to him was rooted as much in artistic collaboration as in romance. Her name was Frances Fisher. Frances was an accomplished actress, with a confidence that seemed to match Clint's own calm presence. The two met while working on the Western masterpiece Unforgiven, which Clint directed and starred in. The film, released in 1992, would go on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, with Clint taking home Oscars for Best Director and Best Picture. On set, their connection grew naturally, built through long days of filming and shared conversations about storytelling, art, and life. Friends and colleagues often describe the bond between Clint and Frances as thoughtful and genuine. Their connection felt grounded in shared experiences, rather than Hollywood glamour. During their relationship, they welcomed a daughter together. Francesca Ruth Fisher Eastwood was born on August 7, 1993, in Redding, California. She became Clint's 7th child, and Frances's first. Francesca's first professional experience came before she could walk, when she was conveniently cast as Frances's daughter in the 1995 film The Stars Fell on Henrietta, which Clint produced. For a time, it seemed as though Frances and Clint had found a comfortable balance between personal life and artistic collaboration. But life in the film industry rarely stands still. As years passed, the relationship slowly moved in different directions. Responsibilities changed, and eventually their paths separated. But the time they shared left a lasting mark on Clint's life. Frances remained connected to the Eastwood family through their daughter, and Francesca went on to build her own career in Hollywood, appearing in films such as Jersey Boys, Final Girl, and The Vault. But just when he thought he had found peace, tragedy struck in a way no one could have predicted. The companion and the loss. By the time Clint Eastwood reached his 80s, he had already lived through decades of extraordinary success. But as life slows down, priorities often change. The excitement of premieres and film sets gradually gives way to quieter routines, familiar places, and the comfort of simple companionship. It was during this stage of his life that another woman quietly entered Clint's world. Her name was Christina Sandera, a hostess at Clint's Mission Ranch Hotel and Restaurant in Carmel by the Sea, California, a property Clint had purchased in 1986 and spent millions renovating into a luxurious resort. Clint had once served as mayor of Carmel from 1986 to 1986, and the ranch was a place he treasured as a peaceful retreat from the demands of the film industry. Their meeting happened most ordinarily in the calm surroundings of a place Clint loved. They began dating in 2014. They went public with their relationship the following year. Over the next decade, the two formed a relationship that remained largely private. Unlike many of Clint's earlier romances, this chapter of his life unfolded far away from the attention of Hollywood gossip. They were seen together in public on numerous occasions, including on the red carpets for The Mule. And in 2016, they were pictured attending a screening of Sully at the Directors Guild of America in Los Angeles. A year earlier, they attended a garden party fundraising event for animal rescue efforts. For nearly 10 years, Christina was a constant presence in Clint's life, a source of quiet companionship in his later years. Then, on July 18, 2024, tragedy struck. Christina Sendera passed away suddenly at the age of 61. The cause of death was later confirmed as a heart attack, with cardiac arrhythmia, an irregular heartbeat, listed as the immediate cause. Clint, then 94 years old, confirmed her death in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter, describing Christina as a lovely, caring woman whom he would miss very much. A Warner Brothers spokesperson told the press that Clint would not be releasing any additional information as he grieved the loss privately. The loss was devastating for the entire family. Clint's daughter, Morgan, wrote on social media about the devastating loss for their whole family, thanking Christina for being a good partner to her father and saying she would be missed. The grief got even worse with another loss in the same year. Maggie Johnson, Clint's first wife, the woman who had believed in him before anyone else, also passed away in 2024. Clint had now lost two significant women from his life in the span of months. The first woman who loved him and the last woman who walked beside him. 2024 was a year of profound personal loss for Clint Eastwood. By 2026, he is 96 years old, having lived a life that few people could ever imagine. Decades of legendary films, unforgettable characters, and a career that shaped generations of cinema. But when the cameras fade and the applause quiets, even the greatest legends are left with something much simpler: memories, the people who walked beside them, the love that shaped who they became. In the end, even a man as legendary as Clint Eastwood is simply someone who lives and loves. Which of Clint's great loves do you believe defined him most? And do you think he ever truly found peace with any of them? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.